Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I'm glad you're here with me tonight. Whether you're new or whether you've been listening for a while, I'm so happy about it. So we're reading in this new book, Mad Dog at Lobo Mountain. If you remember yesterday, a little boy got bit at the campground, and he said that Hero bit him when he saw the picture. And that dad is very mad, and he's going to take care of Hero and then of those boys. So let's see what's going to happen on chapter 2. Double trouble for DJ. For a moment, DJ stood in stunned silence. Then he turned to Alfred. His hazel eyes widened through the thick glasses that some kids said looked like the bottom of a soda pop bottle. What do we do, DJ? The barefoot woman turned off the water and dried her small son's hands. If I was you boys, I'd hope my husband doesn't find your dog. DJ scoffed. I tried to tell him my dog wouldn't bite anybody, especially a little kid. The woman spoke over her son's cries. My husband's done shot a dog in our neighborhood last year. It got out of its yard and chased Roger. But Hero's innocent, DJ protested, raising both hands in a gesture that was excited. You won't never prove that to him, the woman said, nodding towards the dusty camper on the pickup truck. See? DJ saw. The tattooed man came out of the single narrow door at the rear of the camper. He had put on a wide-brimmed leather hat over his wild hair. He stopped in the pine needles to strap on a big holstered pistol around his waist. The woman lowered her voice to a whisper. That's a .35 Magnum revolver. He says it'll blow a car through a car engine big enough to drive a tractor through. Being a mountain boy, DJ knew something about guns. He didn't doubt what the terrible weapon could do to Hero if the man found the dog. I'm sorry about your little boy, DJ said, forcing his eyes away from the tattooed man. DJ knelt and took the little boy's hands. Okay if I look? The boy stopped crying and held out his hand. DJ saw the wound seemed clean, yet he knew from his part-time work as a stringer for the Timber Gold Gazette that it didn't even take a bite to transmit the rabies virus. It lived in the saliva of a infected animal, and getting the saliva into an open cut could also cause the terrible disease. DJ also remembered that when someone was bitten and the animal wasn't found, doctors usually gave the anti-rabies injections to make sure the person was protected against hydrophobia. Otherwise, the victim could die. I'm sorry you got hurt, Roger. Is that your name? The little boy nodded and continued. DJ continued, but I know it wasn't my dog. The dog looked like the picture, Roger said, sniffling loudly. You wouldn't want my dog hurt because some other dog bit you, would you, Roger? DJ continued. The boy shook his head. His mother dried her hands on the yellow towel and gently shoved the boy towards the camper. Roger, you go with your father. He'll want to know where you were when it happened. Then you come straight back and we'll go see the doctor. No, I don't want to see the doctor. I don't want to get shots. The child yelled and started to cry. His father's angry voice prevented a reply. Come here, boy. Show me where that dog was when you got bit. I don't want no shots. Come here, I said. Reluctantly, Roger obeyed. The tattooed man took his son's small, unhurt hand, the one that wasn't bit, and started up the trail the way the boy pointed. It was the same area where Hero had run off. The mother raised her voice. Will you bring him back, Blake? The man swung his head around sharply and angrily replied, It's only right over by the edge of the campground. Nelda, he's big enough to come back by himself. The mother looked unsure, but DJ figured she wasn't likely to argue with her husband. The man and little boy became indistinct shadows in the deeper shadows of the big tree. Slowly, the woman turned from watching her husband and son where they disappeared. She looked down on DJ. I've got to take Roger into town and see what the doctor says. But I know they'll want to give him those shots just to be safe. DJ frowned, trying to remember something. The editor of the weekly newspaper at Indian Springs ran a story about 2 rabbit dogs last December or January. I think it said the doctors will wait a few days before starting the shots in case somebody finds the dog. If the dog had the rabies vaccination, then I think the bitten person doesn't have to take the shots. Your dog had the rabies shot? The woman's answer was blunt. DJ swallowed hard. No, not yet. You see, I was going to have them done so I could get Hero's license, the woman interrupted. Then how do you know your dog couldn't have rabies? Oh, I keep him clean and everything. He's very healthy. Does he ever run loose? Well, sure. He's a hair-pulling bear dog, so sometimes we run in the woods like now. DJ stopped, realizing what he was saying. Then he could have been bitten by a rabbit animal, and your dog could be going mad with hydrophobia, and you might not even know it. Mrs. Heroes was as healthy this morning as the day he was born. But if he had been infected, maybe the symptoms didn't show until when he bit Roger. Hero wouldn't bite. The woman replied, There's only one way to prove that. Find your dog before my husband does. Alfred had been silent, but suddenly he blurted out, She's right, DJ. They'd keep your dog penned up for a few days until they were sure, the woman said. DJ's eyes lit up, then frowned. No, that won't do entirely either. Some dog bit your boy, and it wasn't Hero. So that other dog's got to be found and penned up too. The woman sighed. Finding 2 dogs in this wilderness won't be easy, but my husband's a good hunter. He thinks he's only looking for 1 dog, and he won't hesitate to shoot if he sees him. DJ felt a sense of panic beginning to seep through his body. My dog will come back by himself, eventually. But I don't know about the other dog. Even if you're telling the truth and your dog didn't bite Roger, it won't make any difference to Blake. That's my husband. His real name is Blake Spinks, but everybody just calls him Blake. Anyway, the first dog he finds that looks like your picture is as good as dead. DJ looked at Alfred, whose eyes were wide with concern. DJ said, Come on, Alfred, let's go tell my dad what happened. As the 2 friends started off across the campground, DJ groaned. It's all my fault. If I'd trained Hero better, and if I'd taken him for his rabies shot, then this wouldn't be happening. Alfred said, "Don't go beating yourself up, DJ. What's done is done. We've got to decide what to do now." "I can't let Mr. Spinks hurt Hero. I just can't." "But what can you do?" "I don't know. But maybe Dad'll think of something. Come on. And say a prayer while we're running." When Sam Dillon had listened to what the boys said, he stroked his chin thoughtfully. "I can't let you go in the woods with some guy running around with a gun." "But Dad, we've got to look for Hero before that man finds him." Dad shook his head. "Too risky. DJ, you already heard how nasty he sounded when I honked for you boys this morning." "He wouldn't shoot a person, would he?" Dad shrugged his huge shoulders. "He didn't look all that upstanding to me, DJ." DJ groaned and spun around in anguish just as a forest green car with a white front door and top stopped beside Dad's sedan. Red, amber, and blue lights glistened on the front part of the car's roof. DJ saw that the front door had the circle emblem of Timbergold County with the familiar words Sheriff's Patrol. "Afternoon," the uniformed officer said through an open window. He was a muscular young man with a heavy mustache. His short sleeve shirt and two chevrons of a corporal. That's like bars across his shoulder, a fabric. The deputy lifted his bill cap and ran his tan fingers through a thatch of thick black hair. "Everything okay?" In moments, the deputy had heard the whole story. He got out of his car with the door open and stood with the door open. "I know that guy with the tattoos, Blake Spinks. He's a hard case. Our department's had a few run-ins with him before. You'd better steer a wide path around him." "But he'll shoot my dog," DJ cried. "I'll go talk to him," the officer said. "He's hot-tempered, but all he's done so far is get busted for fighting, disturbing the peace, and resisting arrest. No weapons charges. Of course, he shouldn't have a gun in the campground, but up here where you say he went, it's okay to carry weapons as long as they're not concealed. That's not breaking any laws." "How about shooting my dog?" DJ interrupted. "That's illegal, of course. I'll go have a talk with him. You boys show me where Spinks went, okay?" In a couple minutes, the deputy replaced his microphone and stepped out of the car. He shoved his black battalion, that's like a bat, kind of a short bat, into the black belt at his left hip, adjusted his holstered revolver on his right hip, and settled the radio handset into place on his belt. They have a lot of equipment. "My name's Brackett," he said, reaching a muscular bare arm out to shake Sam Dillon's hand. "Corporal Brackett." He had a diamond-shaped shoulder patch on his shirt. He wore dark brown pants and Wellington boots. "Sam Dillon," Dad said, shaking hands with the deputy. "My son's named DJ, and this is a friend, Alfred Milford. We're from Stony Ridge." The boy shook the corporal's hand and started with him across the campground, just as Mrs. Spinks came hurrying towards them. "Hey, officer, my little boy," she cried, waving both her hands above her head in an excited way. "He should have been back by now." She hurried breathlessly up to the men and boys, pointing towards Devil's Point. "I went part way up the path where he'd gone with his daddy, but I didn't see either of them. I called and called, but Roger didn't answer. Neither did my husband." Corporal Brackett seemed experienced in dealing with excited and frightened mothers. "These two boys told me what happened, Mrs. Spinks. Don't worry. You know how kids are. Your son's probably just playing out there in the campground shadows somewhere." "I don't think so. He was scared of maybe having to take anti-rabies shots. I'm afraid he's ran away." The deputy's voice was calm. "I'm sure he'll turn up all right, Mrs. Spinks, but I'll go take a look, okay?" The woman nodded with relief, and DJ felt sorry for her. Both she and her husband looked like some people Grandpa Dillon saw once in Indian Spring and said, "They look like old hippies that don't know that went out of style years ago." DJ looked up at the woman. "We'll find Roger and we'll bring him back." She answered softly, "I sure hope so. You see, he's got diabetes." Do you know what diabetes is? Diabetes is a disease where you get too much sugar in your body. Your body can't control it. "I gave him his insulin shots and he hasn't had his injection yet today. I give him daily insulin and he hasn't had his injection yet today." DJ didn't understand what she meant, but he saw Dad and the deputy exchange looks. Without a word, the two men began hurrying towards the base of Devil's Point. The boys followed, and DJ, sensing that something terrible might be about to happen. Well, I know about people that need insulin injections, like children that have diabetes and they don't make insulin. They can get very, very sick. In fact, they can go into a coma and die. So it's very important that they find Roger as soon as they can. Well, that's the end of chapter 2. I'll be reading to you again tomorrow. I hope you have a wonderful night. It's Sabbath now here, and I'm thankful for that time God's given us, and I'm thankful for you. I want you to always remember God made you special, just the way you are, and He loves you so much. He always will, and I love you too. So have a good night. God bless.